Good morning, everybody. Here we are, Monday morning, live and ready to go. 9th of October. Leigh-Ann, Bakh'abantu, and Gareth Cliff. And you, and especially you. Yes. Good morning. All right, so I suppose we, everybody had a good weekend. Am I right? Yes? No? No? Good? Okay.
Yeah,
Smiles all around. That's very good.
Hot,
Excellent.
but good.
Yes. It was so hot last night. It was just, windows open.
Exactly.
Fan, zero blankets, and you're still sweaty.
Yep. Sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
I had my legs spread apart.
Here we go.
And my boobs lifted up with the fan directly on me.
I think that's how you broke your hip last time, Leigh-Ann.
Fantastic. Aren't you lucky, though, you can do that stuff since your hip operation, because you couldn't do that before?
Well, still only the left. I've still got to do the right. So it wasn't a symmetrical portrait of beauty.
Okay,
if I could open my right, then it would have been beautifully perfect.
You would have looked like that Vitruvian man from Leonardo da Vinci.
Yes, one in the circle.
Yeah, that's the one. Well, I wish I could say it was an all-round good weekend, but you just have to turn on the news to see what kind of nonsense is going on in this world. And I have to tell you, nonsense doesn't even begin to describe it for me. It's just horrific. Like, I keep thinking humanity is on this course to be better. And we've got technology, and we've got innovation, and we've got interconnectedness like never before, and we can share information, and we can deal with arguments and ideas in a civil and brilliant way, and the future's bright. And then I'm reminded of the nature of humanity, and not obviously, not obviously in equal proportions in equal areas, because this whole situation that occurred in Israel is just so absolutely shocking to me that I don't even know where to begin to describe it. And, it kind of reminds me a little bit of how I felt on 9/11, because it's not just, and you're going to hear a lot of opinions over the next couple of days. Even on this channel, you hear a lot of opinions from people about how, this is justified and that's justified, and people must do this and people must stand up for that. And you're going to see a lot of it in the news.
Terrorist is another person's freedom fighter.
Correct. You're going to hear a lot of moral equivalence from people. And I think you already know where I stand on this. But as always, I'm open to the idea that if better information comes about, I will be willing to modify my point of view. The only difficulty I have in that is that there isn't a moral equivalence between the two sides that we saw over the weekend. We saw civilians, women, children, elderly people being treated like military combatants by one side. And we saw an all-out attack on the idea of civilization by one side. And I just don't see any ambivalence on my part. I don't see any ability to kind of reconcile these as just two sides of the same coin. It's just not, to me, I don't know. I'm just super, super disappointed in the nature of humanity in one respect. And in the other respect, I'm elevated by what I see by the behavior of some, who are able always to put the death of innocence and the protection of women and children and the rest of it at the forefront, no matter what ideological or territorial or moral battle is taking place. There's some people who rise and some people who are prepared to sacrifice all.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've spent the last 2 days just kind of scrolling through the most hideous news feed and thinking to myself, really, is this what we've come to, you know? But we'll get to this. We'll get to this later, because we've got someone joining us just now who can maybe explain a little bit more about it to us, and it's always better to have more information.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, talking about news feeds and more information, social media makes all the difference. When I think about, I know that this is the worst that it's been in a generation.
Yeah.
But I remember 25 years ago, starting off in a newsroom where I suddenly had access to news wires all over the world. And in those days, we were still reading newspapers, and there was only so much information you could get about what was going on. But of course, having this excess and extra information available to us by people on the ground who are sharing videos on social media, it becomes all the more real. Before, it almost seemed like black and white words, you know, or black words on a white piece of paper, newspaper. That was it, and something that was happening far away. But now it's just so much more real to the rest of the world, how you can see in movement and color and sound exactly what's going on and how people are being affected.
We'll discuss this in some detail. You want to say something, Bakh'abantu?
No, I was going to say, like you said, like a great summation from both of you guys, but it's the default nature of humanity is violence, and we saw that on a grand scale. And number two, when elephants fight, the grass gets trampled. In this case, it was women and children.
Yeah, and it's you know, it's not like it's not like these were military attacks by one country and another. Not even. There's no way to like draw some kind of equivalence between them. That's what I keep thinking.
Yeah.
And try as I may, you know, we'll get into this. We've got a lot to discuss. We'll get into it. But there's also plenty of other stuff to get into too this morning. It all feels, the rest of it all just feels kind of a little puerile.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
But, you know, it's always at moments like this that where people are forced to make a decision. Like, people are forced to choose a side. And most people will spend their entire lives dodging that decision. They will try their utmost. And this is true for 90% of humans. They will do their utmost to avoid having to be on this side or the other. They will say whatever they can. And this goes for corporate businesses. This goes for politicians. It goes for most of the spineless individuals that you will find all over planet Earth, who are, you know, mostly, they won't be drawn on this because they don't need to be, because they've got their own problems, they've got their own livelihoods, they've got their children to worry about and whatever else. And those are not bad things to motivate or persuade you either way. But most people will spend most of their time quietly just kind of going, oh, it's terrible, but never having to say what side they're on.
Yeah.
And when something like this weekend with these attacks by Hamas on Israel happens, it very quickly separates the wheat from the chaff, in that you have people suddenly forced to make a decision. They're forced to say, this is the side I'm on. And it tells you a lot about people when they are forced to do that. And the ones who choose are very clear about it. It's like, well, I know exactly what side I'm on. I know exactly what side I think is right. I'm ready to have this argument.
Yeah.
Others will vacillate, and, you know, they'll
obfuscate.
Yeah, they'll try whatever they can to have to avoid. And you'll see this with politicians. In the next few days, we're going to see a lot of this, right?
You're going to see a lot of blanket statements, that say nothing.
Yeah,
that say nothing.
You're going to see a lot of these politicians, particularly in the Western world. They'll get up in front of cameras and they'll do a performance. And the performance will go something like this. Well, you know, as a government believing in freedom and peace and democracy and the decency of all human beings, we condemn violence in all of its various forms. That's what they'll say, something like that. Yeah. And of course, we sympathize with the victims, the women and the children and the innocents. They'll say that stuff. And they won't go further than that in front of the cameras. And then, you know, they'll tolerate sort of both points of view, whatever those points of view may be, and they'll be seen to kind of try to please both sides wherever they can. They'll they'll throw a little bone this way and they'll throw a little bone that way, and they'll play a game, because to the politicians it's always a game, and people are really just, like the pawns, the peons, the little playthings on the board. But ultimately, when push comes to shove, even they will be forced to choose, because both sides, in inverted commas, will be pushing to say, if you don't tell us which side you're on, we're going to just assume you're on the other guy's side.
Yeah.
And so it all gets very ugly very quickly. And listen, the world doesn't need another war. We don't need more shit. I mean, the fact that, if you haven't noticed, I mean, I don't know who hasn't, because we all live in this reality, everything's a little more expensive than it was 4 or 5 years ago, right? We waged a war against a disease which was handled absolutely disgustingly badly by every government on earth, with the possible exception of Sweden's. We've got Russia and the Ukraine at each other's throats. Many men have died already on that front.
Natural disasters.
Natural disasters are happening, though we can't do anything about that, and that's part of just being on planet Earth, right? This cooling, massive molten rock. That's just part of it. But all these human-made things are things we could have done something about if we just managed each other and the planet a little bit better. But we don't seem to be able to do that.
I think the operative term, mind my French, if we got our shit together, like just get our shit together, we can handle this stuff. Like if we got our shit together with COVID, if we got our shit together with Russia, Ukraine, like just get your shit together, guys. Like it is a terrible, like the stuff we can't control, man-made, God-made. Yeah.
Yeah. So Leigh-Ann says, this is quite interesting. I went to an event here in Perth called the Corporate Rumble. Black tie dinner in a big conference hall with a boxing ring in the center, and CEOs from different companies take each other on in a fight. That sounds fun. Wouldn't you like to see that?
Like that's how we decide a merger.
Yeah, but it's still going to be a corporate event. It's not going to be untethered and raw.
Yeah.
Corporates will never be able to uncorporate.
No, but it's worth, at least this is a try. And I mean, trust the Australians to come up with this. I think that's cool.
Now Australians are innovating on this one. We should do that with our politicians. Just get them in a ring. Like just box it out.
Well, they do that in Parliament, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. And Steve says, well, don't worry. The ANC were quick to jump on the bandwagon and show support for the terrorists. Go figure. Yeah, you can always trust on our government to join the wrong side in any war. Just wait and see, everybody. I know. What's the ANC again? Oh no, that's pretty much, you can figure that out. A deaf-blind, dumb mute with zero education could figure out what the ANC is going to do. Just choose the worst of 2 possible options, or 17 possible options. You'll find them. Anyway, look, we'll get to it. As I said, we're going to have somebody join us a little bit later on to try and explain it. And of course, we're going to try to be a conduit of useful information on this channel rather than just propaganda, which people are going to do. You can already see propaganda rolling out everywhere, as always happens in this kind of situation. And, in the Middle East, which has been the crucible of conflict since time immemorial.
Biblical.
Both sides, as people will also say, which I hate. Again, there's that moral equivocation. Both sides have their propaganda ready to go at the touch of a button, right? But don't trust that. Don't trust that. Trust your eyes. Trust your ears. What you see is real. And the stuff coming out of that part of the world right now is making me so ill. It's making me physically ill. Anyway, all right.
Can I show you something with your eyes? Something you can trust, and it's something that's like on the propaganda. Look at my shirt.
Go on. Oh, Steve Biko.
Yeah,
there he is.
Yeah. So like nice. Ryan, I walk into studio, Ryan asks me oh, who wears a Steve Biko shirt? I'm like, what's his other name? He's like, who? I'm like, Bantu. I'm like, Bakh'abantu.
Very good. So you're wearing your namesake. Very good.
Yes.
So all right. Here's something worth getting upset about if that doesn't upset you. all of that stuff we've been talking about. This is something, I mean, I don't know who's in charge of marketing for airlines, but whoever it is, and I know it's various people, they must think that we are just the most hateful things, we passengers. Look at this quickly. Leigh-Ann, Bakh'abantu, look at this. This is a smiling this brand new prototype of a new airline economy seating design. This guy, he's basically standing.
If he got, he can't even get an erection because then there won't be space.
But well, he's Asian, Leigh-Ann.
He's Asian, yeah.
Oh, guys.
But look at this guy. All right, so here's a miserable outcome where the person in the plane will be even more uncomfortable and unhappy than they always are. You will be squeezed into an even more miserable state of being by these just profiteering, vicious, unkind airlines. And they're actually trying to sell this to us like it's a good thing. Oh, but don't worry. It'll be cheaper. Look at the guy in this picture. He's smiling like, look how great this is. He's even got his one hand raised like, isn't this good?
But let's just explain that he's...
Yeah, for the audience viewers, if you can picture the Gautrain. If you can picture the Gautrain
starts at his nipple in order for him to put his hand out.
Yeah, and his knees are up against the chair in front of him. He's more in a seated position from a certain point, but he's actually standing. He's standing. So they're packing us in like sardines, and we're being told this is great. Just everybody, just hold your breath. It's going to be great.
Why don't they just like wrap us up in vine leaves and pack us in a tin?
Yeah, it sounds like it would be better, right? So this is what they've got planned. So just when you think, air travel couldn't possibly get any worse, don't worry. The airlines have got plans to make it even worse. They've taken away all the good stuff, right? First of all, they took away proper meal service with cutlery. They gave us plastic stuff, or they just didn't even give us cutlery. They just give you something that you can use your hands. You animals, here, use your hand.
Or a muffin.
Something that you can eat with your big primate hands, humans. Yeah. Have that in your faces with your primate hands. That's the first thing they did. Then they made the seats as small as possible. Then they made it so expensive that this was cheap just a while ago. And then they started telling us, oh no, you got to pay a carbon tax. I mean, forget the fact that all the people who went to Davos and came up with this idea all have their own private jets with plenty of legroom. Like they've got bedrooms in their planes. But the rest of us must now pay a carbon tax to sit in economy class, right? I mean, have you ever heard rules for thee, but none for me in a more beautiful way than this? And then they take away anything. I mean, first of all, you have to breathe in everyone else's breath and farts the entire trip, which is just so appalling. And you're squeezed into something that would make a bus look like luxury. I mean, buses. You could argue buses are better than this.
Well, taxis. I'm telling you, they're going to, now that they've seen this new design. I can see taxis cutting a hole into the roof of the taxi so that they can implement this seating, make it taller.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Right.
No, like Sadele is right. Like I was saying, Leigh-Ann, they remind me of those Gautrain seats. Like those things, like I don't know what they're there for. There's a suggestion to lean on, but they're so uncomfortable. You can't lean on them, you can't sit on them, you can't do anything. So you just you basically squatting.
The longest. Okay, so hang on, because Bakh'abantu, I've been on the Gautrain. I've never needed to sit down.
No, longest... not the Gautrain, not inside the train, like in the station.
When you're waiting outside.
Those silver things.
Right.
They're like at an angle, very, very strange. It's almost as if they're offering you seating, but they don't really want you to sit.
No, some guy explained it to me. He's like, it's for like, you don't want people sleeping on them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
loiterers.
You know what? Let's make airline travel worse is the whole idea here. So we're going to get to sport in just a minute or two because Ryan's got some of that for us just to update us on the weekend in sport, because there was Rugby World Cup, there was Cricket World Cup, which I didn't even realize until I saw it on my TV yesterday. I watched a bit of that. I thought, wow, this is good. India versus Australia. We'll talk about that and all the stuff in a moment. But I do have to throw this in before we do the sport, the super fans, because this is carrying on this debate over Mama Joy, who's on the left there, and the toothless dude he's got a name.
Toothless dude.
Botha.
What's Botha? Now that confuses everybody because you look at him, you're like, Pierre Botha? No, Botha is his first name. All right,
is that not the Xhosa king?
Yeah, what he does look like your king, Bakh'abantu.
Yes.
Indiebo, huh?
Yeah.
So the latest is that the Department of Sports, Arts and Agriculture, has now said that it didn't pay these guys to do their thing. They're talking specifically about salaries.
So who did pay? So who's paying for them?
No. They're saying they didn't pay salaries, but they paid for flights and accommodation and all of that. So because there were allegations going around that they were also being paid salaries. But I don't know. I haven't heard your opinion on this. Maybe mine's a little off, but I actually don't really care about it. I'm happy for government to pay for two fans who are going to represent South Africa and light up screens and newspapers and news feeds online. I really don't have a big problem with it. Am I wrong?
No, we kind of talked about this last week. It's more of I think there's a useful way to use that money, but again, like you said, at the end of the day, who cares? It's patriotic.
Listen,
what else is sports and sports and culture?
Supposed to agriculture.
Supposed to be spending their money on.
Like, I'm so with you. A little bit of perspective here would be the best thing possible, right? So here's the perspective you need. This government that you're upset about Mama Joy and Botha for, spend like a...
Oh, we went through the Northwest, how they spend 100 mil on a virtual party.
In magnitude.
And the two laptops.
In magnitude, let's just be clear. This is not the government's most egregious spending flop, right? And if these two
at least we have proof. We can see that they're actually there.
Right. And let me tell you something else. There are 1,000 things you could name just in the past 6 weeks that government would have wasted money on, where you will never get a return on your investment. And as much as I don't like the fact that there are two people who are being given preferential treatment by the government and being paid for by the government, and of course there's, there are different budgets for different things. This doesn't upset me enough either. I'm with Leigh-Ann. I'm like, okay, it's kind of boring because they're getting the same two people to all the different sports events. And do we really want a toothless dude who looks like a homeless meth addict?
Hey, he looks like my king.
He looks like your king. Well, why don't we send your king? I mean, then they could kill two birds with one stone. They can keep him out of the Eastern Cape where he's doing damage. But the fact is, this is not the worst thing. I wish it was the worst thing. I wish we lived in a country where this was something people were outraged about with good reason, but it isn't. Like, the very people who are upset about this are people who are just upset because they're not being given a free trip to wherever. That's all it is. It's petty human jealousy. It's like this. It's the weakest of all arguments.
But I know a sports fan who would have enjoyed that more. No.
I love the rugby more. I'm more of a fan. It's like, please, how pathetic is this? And by the way, these two seem to be on the camera a lot. They dress up. They seem properly enthusiastic. If that's all an act, they're very good actors. They're probably the best actors we've got in this country. So you go ahead, guys. I mean, like, if that's the thing you're going to get upset about, I could promise you somewhere in this show, we're going to give you a lot more to get upset about. Then you're a very, very fragile, paper-thin human being. So let's get ready for that. All right, Ryan, what do you got for us in the sport? Let's do this quickly. No, we just need to turn him on there.
Yeah, there we go. I've just got something to add on that. I saw on Twitter, Mama Joy actually tweeted Mr. Khose, who brought it up before. And I just find it hilarious. Check what she said here.
I'm enjoying the world loves Mama Joy, Zizi Kodwa, arts and culture. Oh, so she actually quotes Zizi Kodwa there. That's funny. That's her paymaster. So
Oh,
not making
man.
it better, but there we go. All right.
She's not like tagging him in everything, which is hilarious.
Well, good, because Ronaldo Ghost is the guy who had a
He
problem.
called it out.
Yeah, right. Okay. That's a big
Yeah.
problem, huh? All right. So,
Yeah.
Ryan, what do we got sports result-wise? Let's look at this.
All right, cool. So we're going to make it short and sweet because we have a packed show today. So Rugby World Cup, the quarterfinals have been decided. We have France versus South Africa, New Zealand versus Ireland, Wales versus Argentina, and Fiji versus England. Now, last night I had the shock of my life because I actually won a bit of money. I don't want to brag, but I did throw some money down on Portugal because the odds were crazy versus Fiji, and Portugal actually came out on top by 1 point last night, 23-24.
Yeah, but they needed the other team to win by like, it was so ridiculous.
No.
Okay,
I mean,
whoa. What were your odds? What were your odds in Portugal?
It was 8-1.
Nice
So
job.
I put down like $100. So
You've done well.
I just thought, I was like, what are the chances? And I couldn't believe it happened. But anyway, let's move on to Cricket World Cup. Proteas with the highest ever Cricket World Cup total, 428, beating Sri Lanka by 102 runs. Wins in first round also for New Zealand, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India. Games on all the time until mid-November now. So we'll be seeing a lot of that for the next few weeks.
Very good.
And then the MTN 8 final, the reason why I'm wearing this shirt, Pirates beat Sundowns 3-1 on penalties after 0-0 in regulation time. I see Bakh'abantu shaking his head there, but we won't get into it. Then Formula One, Max Verstappen came second place in the sprint race and secured the third straight world championship. He didn't even need to participate in the actual race to win the world championship, but nevertheless he did, and he is the world champion. And finally, let's get into some Premier League. And we have Arsenal and Spurs tied at the top. Luton and Spurs played, and Spurs came out on top 1-0 there. Burnley and Chelsea. Chelsea came out on top with 4-1. Fantastic. Second win in a row, just saying Chelsea's coming back.
You beat Burnley.
Man United 2-1 to Brentford. And oh man, I think they scored like in the last 4 minutes 2 goals by McSauce. Scott McTominay is unreal. Brighton, Liverpool 2-2. West Ham and Newcastle 2-2, and Arsenal 1-0 to Man City. That's the second loss for Man City in a row. Unbelievable. And that is your sport for today.
Thank you, Ryan. Very good. Carl put a message up, said, when will the Cliff Central app be back? We are actually in process at the moment. It's almost done. We had a preview of it last week. It should be coming to you live in the next couple of days. So stick around. If you've had problems with our app, maybe you've got a new phone or you've upgraded your operating system, then I'm aware of the fact that our app has been giving some trouble, but we've got a brand new and fantastic app coming. I'm very, very excited about this. This is a big move for us. Yeah.
Lovely.
And it'll allow you to watch live on the app as well as listen live, which we haven't had before. So it's going to be a big upgrade, and I'm very excited about that. That is on the way. Thank you, Carl, for asking the question. Gives me a reminder to give you the answer. Okay, so I wanted to invite someone on this morning who has been, I think, very clear and has made a lot of sense. He's also someone I interviewed not so long ago. He's Howard Sackstein. He's a well-known commentator here in South Africa. He, to my mind, ruffles feathers all over the place with his opinions, but he has a very, very straightforward, very logical, very rational take on plenty of the stuff in the news. I like reading what he has to say. He upsets his own home crowd sometimes, but this time I think it is very clear that we need to understand what's happening and what's taken place in Israel over the weekend, because there are going to be loads of opinions thrown around this week, and many of them will be pure propaganda. Many of them will be designed to appeal emotionally and politically to people. I think it's very important that we see this for what it is in terms of the events that have unfolded. And I've decided to invite Howard on because he's someone who makes a lot of sense in this respect. Howie, it's nice to see you. It's not nice to talk about what's going on, but what's your take on this, my friend?
Well, Gareth, it's good to be back, but the circumstances are terrible. It's been one terrible weekend, and maybe we just start by recapping what happened. So on Saturday morning, 6:30 in the morning, Hamas, who are the dictatorship terrorist fascists who controlled the Gaza Strip, launched their first salvo of 2,000 rockets at Israeli cities. Now, over the last 2 days, 2.5 days, those numbers of rockets that have been launched at Israeli civilian areas have gone from 2,000 to approximately 4,300. In fact, a cousin of mine's home was destroyed by a rocket that smashed into his apartment building. Luckily, he wasn't home at the time.
Wow.
But at the same time, Hamas terrorists broke through the border, the international border between Gaza and Israel, and invaded Israel. Thousands of armed militia troops. They went into villages and towns and kibbutzim, and they massacred everyone they could find. They shot people sitting at a bus stop. They went into people's homes, killed entire families, women, children, adults, elderly people. They walked into women in wheelchairs and slaughtered them. One person posted on Facebook that her grandmother was at home. A Hamas terrorist walked in, murdered her, filmed the murder, and then went onto her computer and posted the video of her murder on her Facebook page so her entire family could see it. They went to a music festival, and you must understand that this attack was by land, by sea, and by air. There was a music festival happening in the desert in Israel. It was a nature rave, and the music festival was surrounded. They've so far recovered 260 people who were massacred at the music festival. There are South Africans who are dead. There are South Africans who are missing. There are South Africans who've had their homes destroyed. But so far, the death toll, more than 700 civilians were massacred on Saturday. In one single day, more Jews were killed in that day than any other day since the Nazis went for the mass extermination of Jews in the Holocaust. This is devastating.
Now, I mean, the disgraceful cost of human lives here is one part of this, but I want to ask you quickly about the meta story here. Why now? We've had Hamas and the people of the Gaza Strip with all of their sometimes legitimate, sometimes not legitimate complaints about how they're treated by Israel. But we've had kind of a stalemate for a long while now. We've had a situation at least where people were, Israel had to constantly be on the alert for rocket attacks, which were never ending. There were always very big concerns about people tunneling under the walls, coming into Israel, causing all kinds of, but it was more or less like, like handling a very aggressive neighbor who keeps on threatening to do things. This is an all-out attack. This is coordinated. It was planned. People are saying Iran was involved. Why now?
So I think you can't discuss this without talking about Iran and the broader geopolitical context of what's happening in the Middle East.
Right.
So Israel and Saudi Arabia are becoming closer and closer, and the relations between the two countries are in the process of being what they call normalized. Saudi Arabia and Iran are implacable enemies. And as part of the deal on normalization, the Americans are purportedly going to be signing a defense treaty with Saudi Arabia and providing the Saudis with nuclear enrichment capability. This allows the Saudis to counter the influence of Iran in the area. The Iranians are going to try do absolutely everything to try prevent this happen. And one of the methods that they would have would be to try provoke an all-out war between Israel and its proxies, because Hamas are the proxies of the mullahs in Iran, to try provoke a war and what will be a massive response from Israel in order to try scupper the Saudi-Israel-American deal. And so you have to understand this within a much broader political context here. There are geopolitical forces at play. The Iranians, who are probably the worst human rights abusers in the world, and I don't think we need to go into that. We understand what they do to women. We understand what they do to minorities. You'll see there was a woman beaten unconscious this week for not having her head covered. But we understand that for them, this is a war between Shia Islam and Sunni Islam.
Right.
And they want to try weaken the Saudi-Western alliance while at the same time increase their influence in the Middle East. And that's why there's great fear at the moment that a second front will open because Iran's proxies in Lebanon, Hezbollah, have started firing rockets at Israel as well.
Now, I mean, a lot of people talk about how Israel is in a constant battle for survival. This is not an exaggeration by any means. You just mentioned up in the north in Lebanon, Hezbollah are the other proxies of Iran, and we've got the West Bank, which is, of course, on the other side. This violence all came from Gaza, but a war on three fronts, is that something that Israel can conceivably handle? That's what everybody's concerned about. It breaks out on all three fronts. Is that going to be insurmountable for Israel?
No, look, Israel's existence is not at threat. Israel is a major military and political power. The American fleets are moving towards the borders or off the coastline of Israel at the moment as a sign of support. And the Americans will provide weaponry to Israel. This isn't an issue of two conventional armies fighting each other. Hamas and Hezbollah are not conventional armies. They don't have soldiers in uniform necessarily. These are, in fact, terrorist organizations. And ultimately, it's much harder to fight a terrorist organization, but it's not an existential threat to the very existence of Israel. But when on one single day you've had 700 of your citizens murdered, more than 2,000 who have been injured, and what looks like approximately 130 to 160 people kidnapped and taken into Gaza, you're heading for a major, major conflict. Many, many thousands of people will die over the next few weeks. If the hostages are not released, if the civilians that have been taken are not released, all hell will break out in the Gaza Strip.
Howie, I spent a little bit of time just now talking about how there's going to be a huge amount of moral equivocation by political leaders all over the world. We're already seeing some of that happening where they say one thing, but they're trying to please, in inverted commas, both sides here. Who has come out in support of Israel and who's come out in support of Hamas?
Shall we say almost everyone has come out in support of Israel, the entire civilized world, all of Europe, all of Western Europe. The Indians have been particularly supportive of Israel, the United States, Canada, much of South America, great parts of Africa, Rwanda, Kenya. There's been an enormous groundswell of support. Let's talk about who hasn't.
Yeah.
And who hasn't is South Africa.
Right.
Not the people of South Africa, because the responses over the last few days, my phone has been filled with just hundreds and hundreds of messages from friends of every religion, every race, every ethnicity, all saying, what can we do to help? We're so worried about you and your family. But the truth is the South African government, who have no ability to talk about any moral issue, they have not condemned the attack on civilians. They have not offered any sympathy or empathy, and there are dead South Africans. There are missing South Africans, and the South African government has blamed Israel for everything.
Yeah.
It's not surprising, but it just shows the moral depth, ineptitude, incompetence of the South African government and their complete lack of caring about the South African Jewish community or their understanding of world politics.
And on social media, what do we see? Is there a balance of opinions there? Is there a complete imbalance? Or what are people saying? And what are the most worrying things that you've seen on social media? Because of course these things change as well. You know, governments in the wake of something awful like this, they tend to know what to say because it's programmed. But I don't know, Howie. It seems like in places that you would least expect it, London, New York, the centers of kind of Western civilization, you have people protesting openly about the genocide of the Jews and how this is a great thing. And you see people, you know, waving Palestinian flags and calling for the destruction of an entire race of people in a very open and honest and straightforward way. Are we to believe them? You know, I think you take people at their word in places like this. And I can't believe this is happening in New York, of all places, you know?
Well, you know something, we're learning to take people at their word, because let's face it, the Hamas chart itself calls for the murder of Jews and the destruction of Israel. And people always said, no, they don't really mean that.
I don't mean
Apparently, they actually, not only do they mean it, they carry it out. So when you have radicals, and let's face it, what we're talking about is a small group of radicals. And because of social media, we've given these radicals and these nutcases a voice. So of course we see it. But the overwhelming, vast majority of normal, peace-loving people understand the consequences of what has happened on the weekend and the massacre of the innocent. But let's face it, war is going to be dirty. A lot of blood is going to be spilt over the next few weeks. When hostages are going to be released, there is going to be bombardments. There are going to be innocent people killed on both sides, and public opinion shifts. People don't like to see blood on their TV screens. But the truth is, this is a battle for the very soul of the Middle East. Israel will extract the price. Israel will mete out justice for the massacres that have happened of their civilians. And no one should be surprised. And no one who hasn't come out to condemn what has happened should ever think that they have the moral authority to talk about anything ever again, especially not the consequences of what will follow from this attack.
All right, Howie, thank you. You helped make a lot of this much clearer to those of us who have maybe not been following it with the degree of kind of interest and evaluation that you've been able to provide us this morning. But I all I can say is, I'm just thinking about all those people in Israel this morning, and I'm thinking about the people who may be held hostage, who may have been kidnapped, the people whose families are worried that they're still alive or not. And this is not just about like politics and territory, though those come into it. We know this is about people, and possibly thousands of people who've been affected by one morning's activities that nobody could have foreseen. Just absolutely appalling. Thank you so much.
And Gareth, if we can say, there are tens of thousands of people in South Africa who have loved ones in Israel, because there's a very large South African community in Israel, probably 40, 50,000. There are people here who are worried about their families. There are people here whose families have been murdered. There are people here whose families are missing. And every single person in this country just needs to take a moment and think about the impact that this has on the individual, the impact on the South African Jewish community and all of our friends and our families who are living in absolute fear and terror. Thank you, Howie. Howard Sackstein, and a very sobering point of view there, which I think we could all benefit from listening to. Thank you, Howie. Nice to see you. There we go. It's just, there's no way to say it more straightforwardly than that.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. That is blunt, but we need to hear it. You people need to know what's happening. Hope people are listening.
All right. Well, it's very difficult after you've had a discussion like that to just kind of carry on with your day as if nothing else matters.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But somebody sent us this, Leigh-Ann Mole, which I think you might find quite exciting. And I'll show you just after 7. It's a little clip which may interest you in a big way.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Does it have to do with animals or alcohol?
You'll see, but both of those perhaps, because it's more about people. But we'll get to that just now. First and foremost, it is on Monday mornings where we talk to Dr. Hanan. We get our psychology right. We get our brains and our minds and our emotions in check. And I thought it was probably a good idea to talk to Dr. Hanan this morning, because there are a lot of people who have relationship issues that they're trying to deal with. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Hey guys, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. So, Doc, we've got a couple of questions here from people who've been listening to you for the last few weeks and want to abuse your time with their stupid emotional problems. But here's the first one. Here's the first one of these. And this isn't stupid. This is from Anonymous. A while back, I requested my boss to sign a statement of employment letter for me, detailing the nature of my work, etc. We met for coffee and she agreed to sign it. I then emailed her the letter for her to sign. She recently got a big promotion and emigrated, but still works for the company. I understand my letter may be a low priority item for her to attend to, but it's now been over 3 months and she still won't sign the thing. After numerous follow-ups and email and WhatsApp, I just don't get responses. just the dreaded blue tick. So what do you do if your boss ignores you? And Dr. Hanan, I don't want to just talk about her particular problem because it's indicative of a general trend. And I think the most frustrating thing in business, in friendship, in relationships, in family, is this inertia that people suffer from, where they're unable to make a decision, unable to execute, unable to deliver, unable to respond even. Is this a new problem, or is this an ongoing thing that people are just useless at getting back to you and doing what they say they'll do?
It's like executive dysfunction.
So I'll mention a couple of the fundamental and important principles that are not only relevant to this story, but people can use it in their own lives as well. First of all, people don't really care about what you need. People just care about what they need. It's all about really me, and how my needs are being fulfilled. So I always got to weigh up, well, it takes me time and effort to write you a reference letter or a referral letter. What am I going to have and what am I going to get in return? And to this particular emailer, I would say, well, what is the need, and why would your employer write you a letter? What can you offer her in return? Because it's all about really giving and fulfilling somebody's need, making it valuable for them to go and give you something in return. And I follow a couple of basic fundamental, let's call it non-negotiable commandments when I ask myself, should I be investing into asking again, or perhaps into a greater relationship? First of all, ask yourself, how important is this issue to you? The more important a particular issue to you, the more you should pursue it. The less important a particular issue is, the less you should pursue it. And that, by the way, relates to every relationship. So if I have a fight or an argument with a friend about something quite silly, well, there's nothing and there's no reason for me to pursue the argument or continuing in this discussion, because it's a waste of coins. So the first thing is, how valuable is this conversation? And the more valuable it is, the more I should pursue it. The second part is, how much leverage does the other person have over you? How consequential would it be to pursue this argument if you get it wrong? So the answer is, well, the more leverage the other person has, the more consequential getting it wrong is, the more careful you should be and delicate in your approach. Then you've got to understand the person, you've got to understand the personality. And the third thing that I would say is, and that's what I started with, is needs. People only do things when it fulfills their particular need. When you walk into a conversation, this is for everybody negotiating, conversing with anybody, or needing something from someone. Don't ask yourself, what do I need from them? Ask yourself, what do they need from me? Because people don't need a lot of what they don't need. They just need a little bit of what they do need. And the moment you can decipher what the other person needs, what he is bidding or what she is bidding for, you can get them to pretty much do anything. So I'll give you an analogy. If I have not had food for the last 7 weeks, and you come and offer me the nicest car on planet Earth, well, I don't care. I'm not going to give you anything in return, because that's not what I need. If you give me the nicest house, well, I don't care, because that's not what I need. I need a little bit of food. And the moment you dangle that carrot, in return, I will do whatever it takes. Think about back in COVID when we were getting the vaccines. Think about the queues of people who were locked up in cages, lining up in hours and hours and hours of queues just to get what they needed. The moment you can dangle a carrot, then you can get somebody to do really pretty much anything you want.
All right, but if we look at this situation, and we're not mind readers, we don't know what this boss's problem is. We don't know why she's holding out on just getting this thing done. People will say there's a power imbalance because she has all the power and she just has to sign this thing. What power does the employee have? So when you talk about her needs as the boss, if you're going to give her any, what the hell can the employee give her in order to get her motivated and incentivized to sign this stupid letter?
Well, for me, it would be, if you don't know what the other person needs, go and get data. So there's nothing wrong with turning to the employee and saying, hey, Mrs. or Mr. So-and-so, I know I've asked you, is there anything that I could do to make this easier for you? Is there anything that I can do to make it simpler for you? Can I come and drop it off? Can I write it out for you? Can I draft it for you? All you got to do is just sign it. What can I do that the barrier to entry is much lower to make it easier for you to fulfill my need?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So go and get data.
Without sounding sarcastic, of course. That's the hard part.
And is there generally a kind of inertia, or am I imagining this because I'm tired as an individual of not getting responses from people? You know, and I think this is something a lot of people in business will moan about, is that I would rather just hear an outright no from some people than to have them mess me around for weeks and weeks and weeks and not get back to me. Do you think that it's got worse, or do you think that it's always been like this?
You know what I think is, if you look at our times today versus how it was perhaps 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, we've got a lot more on the go and a lot more distractions. So there's a lot more balls to juggle. There's a lot more things to do. There's a lot more goals to achieve. So when I get a message from somebody, please believe me, that's 1 out of 500 messages that I received today, and 1 out of 500 things that I got to do today. So unless you make it of any value to me, then why should I respond? Again, ask yourself not what do I need from the person, but rather what does the person need from me in order to fulfill that need. So the answer is yes, people have got a million distractions, and getting back to you needs to be of value to them in order for them to pursue or to be driven to do so.
I just want to throw this in too, and this is valuable information for anyone who is vacillating and not making a decision and messing people around. There are costs, sometimes very heavy costs and consequences to not making a decision. And for anybody who thinks it's better to just sit on your hands because you won't be blamed if something goes wrong, sometimes not making a decision is the very worst decision you can make.
So Gareth, I'm going to take it one step further. In my practice, I teach fundamental principles to engage with life. And this is actually, I call it principle number 6. And principle number 6 is never sit on the fence. Because on the fence, you will bleed all your coins. I would rather somebody make the wrong decision than make no decision. Because with no decision, you don't get any feedback. In life, I don't see failure as failure. And by the way, I'll send you something on WhatsApp. You can distribute it to your team or to the audience. But in life, I don't see failure as failure. Failure I see as feedback. Feedback is information. You use that information to make you better, and you keep on going. If you fail again, it's the same cycle. It's feedback. You use that information to make you better, and you keep on going. You fail again, use that information to make you better until you win. And the moment you win, because you've just kept on leveling up, you look back at those experiences that are so-called failures, and now you see them as stepping stone to get you to the win. And a good example is how many failed relationships have we had? And in that moment, we think, oh my God, it's the biggest thing. But if we allow that to level us up and eventually meet the right person, the moment you meet the right person, you look back at those so-called failures, and suddenly they're no longer failures. They were the stepping stones and the reasons that allowed you to get to the right relationship. Same goes for any business failure. We look at it in a moment as failure, but if we allow it to level us up, to improve us, once we win, we look back at that and go, that's the reason why I won.
I know I sound like I've got a bug up my ass about this, but I'm really, really tired. Bakh'abantu finds it funny, but it drives me up the wall when people just sit there and they don't make a decision. And we've got so many people in business, in friendships, in relationships, in family situations that just don't want to make a decision. Who do you want to have agency in your life but you? Like, wouldn't you like to be the prime mover in your existence? Wouldn't you like to be the one who can take responsibility for the wins, own the wins, and also learn from the mistakes? Who is better than you to make these decisions? Why do we have to explain this to some people? Do they really think that they can play a cameo in their own life story?
Yes, they do. They think they are passive.
I don't get it. I really don't.
I challenge everybody. I challenge everybody today to make decisions. Don't sit on the fence. If people might say, Hanan, they'll say two things to me when I say don't sit on the fence. One, what if I don't have enough information to make a decision? Great, then go and get data to make a decision, but never sit on the fence and wait for life to offer it to you. Because how many times have I said on the show, my favorite quote, if you're not the chess player of your life, you're a pawn in someone else's. If you sit on the fence and the universe picks a position for you, you pick a position. And secondly, people say, Bakh'abantu, what if I pick a position and it's a life and death decision? And I say to people, what do you think? You're Indiana Jones? When was the last time you had to make a life and death decision? Life doesn't give you the red wire, blue wire, and if I choose the wrong wire, I die. It doesn't happen, only in movies. So you can make a mistake 1,000,000 times over and nothing will happen to you. I promise you, nothing will happen to you as long as you keep on moving forward.
Can I add, Doc, here? So about gathering information, making the wrong decision is like you get feedback from that. So you are gathering information. So if you're sitting on the fence and you go left and you get burnt or you get pricked by thorns or whatever, you've learned that side pricks thorns and then you can go on the other side. That is information.
It's just data. It's just data.
What is it that makes certain people passive and other people active in their own life decisions? Is it the way you're raised? Is it fear? Is it pride? Like, what is the main motivator for people? Because I don't understand passive people. I've never understood them in my life. It's like a fucking mystery.
It's cowardice. It's cowardice. I also don't understand it. It's cowardice because you don't want responsibility. You want to blame someone else.
Sometimes there are reasons, I believe. But for people like yourselves who are highly motivated and good decision makers, I don't believe that you'll have sympathy for what I'm about to say. And I think that you might see it as an excuse. But there are sometimes, and not all the time, someone should not make a decision for months and months on end. But sometimes it can be because of being overwhelmed, or it's just way down their priority list. But yeah. That's my
People don't make decisions because they have fear of failure. They don't want to disappoint anybody. They don't want to get it wrong. They don't want to be criticized. There are many reasons, but you can break through that. You can change that fear by bungee jumping over and over again until you stop fearing bungee jumping.
All right. Well, there we go. There's some good advice for you for today. Whatever it might be, whether it's making a decision that you've been postponing for forever, whether it's jumping and deciding you're going to quit the job, whether you're going to get that divorce, whether you're going to make the proposal to get married, whether you're going to, you're going to finally decide to, I don't know, homeschool your kid, whatever it is, you make your decision, do it. Don't mess around. Doc, the cost of just sitting there and waiting, you said all your coins will go because it's going to bother you. It's going to bother you the whole time, right? It's going to be on your mind. It's going to prevent you from doing things that you need to do in your life. You're going to be in stasis. It's terrible.
That's all right. It's a worse position to be on the fence. You bleed all your coins.
I love it. All right, thank you. That's great advice,
right,
and it made me feel a bit better about all these people who don't do it. Thanks, Dr. Hanan. Very good.
Bye, guys.
There we go. Bit of Monday motivation for you. It's going to be okay on a Monday morning. You need to know that after a weekend, because who the hell wakes up on a Monday and goes, "Hooray! It's Monday! I can't wait for this." Even the most positive, optimistic people in the world, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I hear you, Leigh-Ann. I do understand that, for some people it's anxiety inducing and all of that stuff. But life was never meant to be easy and pleasant the whole time.
No, for sure. That's the thing.
People who avoid discomfort at all costs. I don't know how these people have survived before this. I don't know how
they haven't.
All
They're
innovation
just
and progress. Yeah, all innovation and progress comes from a place of uncomfortability.
Yeah, but some people can't get past that. I mean, I look at Elon Chief Twat's comment. I get imposter syndrome, refuse to make important decisions. That is a reality for a lot of people. Sometimes replying to a very quick email, if you haven't spoken to that person in a long time, can feel bigger than it should be for the overthinkers. But yes, we'll get our shit into order.
No, but those are not the people you want around you in a zombie apocalypse, right? I mean,
it all goes back down to the zombie apocalypse.
I can't send the email because I haven't spoken to this person. I get you, Leigh-Ann. I'm not attacking you, Leigh-Ann, but I can't send this email. It's too much. I'm too anxious. Dies in the zombie apocalypse immediately. one of the first to go. All right. So I got this little infographic from Dr. Hanan. I'll share it with you after 7 o'clock. Stick around. We got a whole lot more on the way. It's a busy, busy morning. There's a lot to chew this morning. We'll get back to it all in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Up next in the Auto Trader podcast.
In the UK, they've pushed out the deadline for EVs by another 5 years.
It's not surprising.
Yeah.
Wendy. It's really not surprising. I think governments are ambitious.
Yeah.
A little bit ambitious. It's 2030, 2035 is around the corner. It's like literally around the corner.
I think it was maybe 4 months ago we actually had this discussion. I asked you if you think the deadlines are going to be kind of set in stone, and you did predict that there could be a little bit of wiggle room between some of the I guess the legislations by the different nations. But the UK is the first one to move it indefinitely, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that happening.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
To our valued partners, thank you for being part of our journey in leveraging the power of podcasting as part of your marketing mix. The explosion of podcasts and vidcasts is more than a trend, it's a meaningful way to create lasting connection. CliffCentral.com is a unique hybrid of live streaming and podcasting that brings valuable experience and insight. If your business isn't doing podcasting, contact us at contact@cliffcentral.com. Yes, indeed. Monday morning. All right. So let's see. That Mr. Monday session hit home, says Sanele. I think a lot of people, it's funny. You sometimes stumble upon, and thanks to that email from Anonymous, you stumble upon stuff that people are really struggling with that really matters. And you think this isn't an important issue. And then it just strikes a chord and people are like, wow. I mean, Congo Chris saying a lot of people overcook the turkey in their own head. Ask is much smaller than you make it. And we've got to get into that. I've got the little infographic from Dr. Hanan, which I'll share with you in a moment. But a lot of people, I'm always amazed by this too. In the scheme of things, any decision you make is not life or death. None of us is like, the president of the United States, or at this stage, the president of the state of Israel, or the boss of Hamas, whoever that is. So your and my decisions are not going to have the most wide-ranging consequences of all time, but we all are so obsessed with ourselves. We think we're so terribly important. If we make a wrong decision, like history is going to record us as having been wrong, and that would be so bad, right? Meanwhile, no one's writing history with you in it. I hate to tell you, but
it's the hey buddy generation. You're not special.
Really, what? So your social media will go down. I promise you, if some people's social media went down for 2 months, most of us wouldn't even notice. So just remember, a little bit of humility instead of solipsism at this point might be a very good way of addressing those indecision moments. I don't need to make this decision. because I'm so important that if I make the wrong decision, let me take more time to decide.
There's
Meanwhile,
no you in history.
yeah, and maybe maybe a lot of these people are just like delusional about their own importance and how big their decisions are. Just do it. Nobody's going to care. Anyway, I see also there's a comment here from Peter who says, who's the self-appointed censor who removes comments? I thought this was one of the Free Thinking shows. I don't know what you're talking about, Peter, but it wasn't me. So if
No
someone
one
removed
the comments.
Wasn't me.
So again, Peter, like, unless we're missing something, put it up again. We'll see what you have to say. And if it's not,
Also,
listen,
could be
anything we
YouTube.
do. Yeah, the thing, of course, it could be YouTube. I mean, if you're watching the show live on YouTube, they could easily do that. They do that often. You know, they'll demonetize or change things just because they don't like it. So here's something that Dr. Hanan sent me that's just on this last subject, because it is something that clearly has struck a chord with people. Indecision being the subject matter here. Big story. Who knew that indecision was the biggest thing? So it's this little infographic. It starts with failure leads to feedback, leads to information, uses more information to make you better, keep on going, and you fail again, or you win. And that's the only way it works. There's no other, the arrows don't go the other way around. So useful to know.
So finally, being a failure is okay.
It's better than okay. The people who really do well in the world are the ones who fail often and quickly and recover quickly.
Yeah.
You know, there's nobody who always wins. You know, we're not superhuman. We're not gods.
Yeah, unless you're like Bill Gates or like Jeff Bezos. He's always winning.
Well, no, he is. I mean, have you seen his marriage? It was a disaster.
Well,
So
he gave her half. No. That was mutually agreed upon. Like, no, you go. You get half.
It's still, by any metric you like to measure things, I'm absolutely sure that their children, who they had together, would have considered it a better outcome if their parents had stayed together, right? So
yeah, that's true.
No other way to say it. And there are failures of other kinds. I'm sure Jeff Bezos has made some terrible decisions in his life. Maybe buying the Washington Post. Who knows? I'm just saying. All right. If you are casting on your TV, the comment disappeared, but on the phone, they're always there. So I'm not sure if that's also a YouTube thing or not, but there's some info from Elon Chief Twat. All right. So a lot of things that are going on. We're going to break with all of the news and all of the serious stuff and indecision and everything else. And let me show you what a professional newsreader looks like. Are you ready? This is a proper professional newsreader, okay? Watch this. This is music. And so long ago, the footage is grainy, but here it is. All right, you ready? The world today. Here it is. Various news music. There she is.
Good morning, it's Wednesday and you're watching The World Today on SABC3. I'm Leigh-Ann Mole. Coming up today as usual, news from around the globe and very interesting interviews today. We'll be having Melinda Shaw, who's the editor of Heat magazine, as well as Fiona Coyne from The Weakest Link joining us in the studio.
Very important news with Melinda Shaw from Heat magazine. Anyway,
Heat magazine. Heat magazine.
Look at you, Leigh-Ann Mole, with your hair all coiffed and you that thing that you news people do with the papers, where you like put the papers like this and you put them down in front of you. That's a very important, that's a very professional thing to do.
Those papers, I thought it was just a thing that newsreaders did with the papers.
No.
But those papers get handed to you. They're still steaming from the printer. And it's literally hot off the press. Some of them are stuck together. Some are back to front. They're in the wrong order. You've got to check that stuff within a few seconds of the intro music. So it's a real thing. But geez, what a blast from the past that was.
Yo.
My goodness. Yes, Congo Chris, look how young. I'm surprised Moses isn't a guest on the show. You know what Melinda Shaw brought in that day actually was the very dress that Charlize Theron wore to the Oscars. It was a black sequined gown. And I got to hold that in my hands. And it was in the days of when Heat magazine was really in its heyday, and we didn't have the social media that we have now. So something like that was big news.
So Joyotique says, what year was that? Do you remember? Can
It
you
must
guess?
have been about 15 years ago, I reckon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cunning Stunt says, Hottie Leigh-Ann. Yeah. I mean, the
No,
marriage
when I
proposal
told you guys that I was
rolled in, and I mean, you had like 100 men waiting outside the SABC with bunches of flowers for you. It was a, you know.
Yeah, 2004 says Tracy. That's before Facebook. Exactly.
Mhm.
It was, it was pretty crazy. But in retrospect, what's 15 years? It's nothing, is it? When you're in your 40s. But yeah,
So, I mean,
where the hell did you find that?
Someone found it. Somebody found it and sent it to us. I love it. It's just so great.
I love it too.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Those were stressful days, I tell you.
But you look so good. You look so calm. You look so ready to take on the world. It's like you're the trustworthy newsreader that we've forgotten about. You know, we need more people like that.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, it was a lot of pressure. I must tell you, it was a lot of pressure. And the thing is, a lot of those shows I'd written again as well. I'd written myself and produced them. And we were doing them every single day. And then on top of that, we were doing a weekly wrap-up called Africa This Week. That was actually my favorite show because we got to do these sort of humanitarian pieces from around Africa, which were just amazing. But yeah, thanks for that. Loved that.
Wow.
Blast from the past for you. I thought that was pretty awesome, pretty incredible. Very nice.
And no alcohol or animals, and I still enjoyed it.
And here's a clip of Bakh'abantu just the other day.
That one we are not going to tolerate at all. At all. At all. I've said.
Okay, all right. Sorry,
that we won't tolerate at all.
Sorry.
That we won't.
Sorry, that's Bakh'abantu 20 years in the future.
Yeah, that's great.
Blast from the past. Back to the future.
We had a blast from the past. Now we got a back to the future moment. So there we go. Now you know. Right? Very exciting stuff. Okay, let's talk about some of the stuff that's in the news at the moment. Leigh-Ann, you've got a bunch of things on your agenda. So where do we begin? Let's start off with, I think this is quite a big thing. A couple whose flight was ruined by a farting dog. Now, we were talking about how awful airline travel is just a moment ago. There's a dog on a flight?
Why?
So you're allowed animals on certain flights, and I'm not going to... I wanted to leave this for the last part because it's the least important part, but it was an emotional support animal.
I think this is a very important story, and I think that's a very important part of it. Emotional support animal, right? Go ahead.
Okay. So this couple had, I think I sent you a picture of the animal. It's like a short-snouted animal that probably has breeding issues. But this dog on a really long flight farted the whole way. It was a 13-hour flight. He farted the entire flight, and he was snorting as well because of his nose. Yeah. But it was on an Air Singapore flight, and this couple who were seated next to this dog, they were from New Zealand. They were really upset about this animal. They said their entire flight was ruined, and they've actually received compensation. Their names Jill and Warren Press. They were given $1,410 by Singapore Airlines. Apparently, the dispute lasted for months. This apparently happened months ago, and this is being hailed as a major victory in the airline, in the passenger versus airline industry. So yes, they flew from Paris to Singapore, and this they said that they should have been in advance because of this farting, snorting emotional assistance dog.
Can I top your story, Leigh-Ann? A couple of weeks back, talk about the worst flight ever. So this is a flight from Atlanta to Barcelona. It was stalled for 15 hours because some lady had diarrhea 2 hours
Oh.
into the flight, and she ran down the passage. and
Yes,
just
she spray
squirted
painted the entire
everywhere.
plane.
And then the pilot. So now, what's funny is the clip of the pilot calling in. He's like, "Traffic control, we need to turn back. There's been a biohazard accident on the plane." And after traffic control configured, like they were 4 hours in, they turned back. And no one complained. They were like, nah, we needed to turn back. We can't bear another 6 hours with that smell. Apparently, it was ridiculous. Down the aisle, just full of diarrhea. And then they waited what, 15 hours before they got back on their flight. The plane, they tried to clean, the ground control crew tried to clean the carpet. They ended up ripping it out and putting on new carpeting.
Yeah, because there's no way once you got diarrhea on like at that scale, and I saw what I think were pictures from that flight was very upsetting.
Yes.
You know, people will talk about
great.
people talk about the cabin crew or the people that had to clean the carpets or the woman who sprayed the diarrhea all over everything, but they don't talk about all the other passengers. Can you imagine how annoyed you'd be? You're on your way home on an international flight, right? And you didn't go and eat like dodgy fish the night before. You behaved yourself. You made sure that you got to the airport on time. You made sure you checked in your luggage. You made sure you had all your papers. You've washed your hands. You've been to the loo. You're ready to go. You're like, oh, this is going to be horrible because all flights are. I'm getting on this plane. I'm just going to forget about things for about 10, 15, however many hours your flight is. Starts shitting all over your plane. And now you have to go back. You have to be delayed. I mean, let me tell you,
that's a story that you'll carry with you.
Diarrhea would be the least of her worries if I were on that plane with her. I would hunt her down. And I would make her life a misery from that day forward. I would be like, you know what? I'm not going to forget this. You are an evil, evil person to now put your problems out into the world.
I want to ask you something. I asked my brother this, and I was quite surprised by the outcome. Gareth, imagine for some weird, fucked up reason that was you that had the diarrhea. I don't know, somebody injected you with something in your arm, some weird, horrible virus, and you exploded on the plane running to the toilet. Would you ever admit that it was you?
Hold on. First of all, diarrhea doesn't just suddenly start trickling out of your asshole. You start feeling the warning sign.
It's some bush virus that you have no control over.
Some dysentery, Gareth. We're talking about biblical stuff here.
Guys, we were talking to Dr. Hanan just a minute ago about indecision, okay? Like the moment I feel like something's not going on that's good, or something is going on that's not good, I'm hightailing it to that bathroom way before I start shitting all over the passage. That has never happened to me.
Let's say you were kidnapped, and while you were sleeping, they knocked you out. While you were sleeping, they injected your intestines with gallons of diarrhea and then slapped you to wake you up. And you woke up at the point where you were about to explode, and you started running and you exploded in the plane. Would you tell people it was you? Would you go onto TikTok or onto this show and say, that person, it was me?
The possibility that there are people on planes injecting other people with tons of like biohazard level diarrhea medicine. This is an impossible, stupid question. I'm telling you now, if I felt like I was going to explode, first of all, I've never taken a shit in a plane, ever.
Same.
All right.
I probably
have. Second of all, if I felt like something was going on, I would immediately take action. I wouldn't sit there and wait. Or worse, I don't know how, but this woman, if you saw the evidence, she spray painted the entire cabin with this stuff. There must have been people with bits of it on them.
Hanging from their eyelashes.
How does that happen? Did she start pulling her pants down while she was running down the path? What? How does this happen? There are at least two barriers. If she was wearing underwear and she was wearing a pair of pants or a dress or something, the two barriers that this stuff has to get through. What kind of a person? I'm going to ask this with all the generosity.
It was a punami. A punami ripped her pants apart.
There is no way this person needs to be publicly executed.
Shamed. Wait, what?
Execute. No. The shame is bad enough, but it's not necessarily the punishment that is required. Someone who behaves with this much disrespect towards the rest of humanity. Sorry, I got no time for you. It's the end of the story. A trial by judge, by jury, by whoever else, they will all find this person to be a complete disgrace.
I'd love to hear from this person and hear their side of the story.
Well, their side of the story that they shot themselves all over the place.
Yes. I want to know, I want to feel their pain. I want to know exactly what they went through.
Elon says, I ate potato salad from Spa once and I couldn't make it home. I shat in the car and no, I no longer have that, Bucky.
Like instant.
I'm with Azalea. Like, some people have no self-control. Absolutely. It's disgusting. What if he was wearing a dress with no underwear? What kind of a person
goes on an international flight?
What kind of person gets on a plane without underwear on?
And a dress.
It's
international flight.
No, unbelievable. Sorry. And
by the way, that farting dog couple, the couple who complained.
Guys, we totally forgot about the farting dog.
Yeah, exactly. They were offered a seat at the back, a different set of seats, but they were at the back of the plane. They turned those down and rather spent the rest of the 13 hours with the farting dog. I mean, and then they were compensated. Please, man, they scammed the airline.
Yeah. Also,
I think they like the farts, Leigh-Ann.
Dog farts, please. What a lot of nonsense. It's just also some people are desperately attention seeking, like these people. And is that them in the picture? Is that the couple that complained, or is that the couple who had the emotional?
Look at them from New Zealand.
That's the couple from New Zealand.
You can see the guy's leg who has the dog.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm also
black man.
Yes.
Oh,
okay.
Polynesian. It's New Zealand.
And they didn't bring race to it, but I am. That's why they complain.
So that's the couple. Oh, it's unacceptable that we had to sit next to a farting dog the entire trip. It's really unacceptable. And we demand compensation. Meanwhile, as soon as those two, you can tell, look at them. As soon as they got their compensation, Singapore Airlines saying to them, we're going to give you first class tickets to anywhere in the world. They were like, yes, we won against the farting dog.
Telling you, I'm angry with them.
All right. Well, I knew you would take the side of the dog. I'm not that surprised.
Well, Tracy Bard brings up a good point here, Leigh-Ann. They donated the payout to animal welfare.
They said, I also thought so, Tracy, but they said they were going to. Do you believe that?
No, I don't believe it for a second. So. They took the money and they ran.
Also, they went on another holiday.
Like the big difference between the farting dog and this despicable story that Bakh'abantu brought up. We were having a perfectly good morning until you had to bring up the story of this disgraceful woman who shat all over the inside of this plane. I mean, some people were having breakfast, Bakh'abantu. The difference between her and the dog is that the dog is a dog. It doesn't have
self-control.
Doesn't have human decision-making powers. Dog
higher
feels
level
like a
of functioning. Yeah,
right?
Higher level of functioning.
I've been on planes where the person right next to me is asleep and they fart. Now, even in your sleep, that's unacceptable. But the worst is people who are awake and do that, because you're a human, you're not a dog. Okay, so if you're asleep and you do it, I'll be like, oh, you're disgraceful. But you do it when you're awake and then you think no one knows. That is appalling. That is truly, you are the enemy of humanity if you do that kind of thing. All right.
Come on, Gareth. We spoke about this with Leigh-Ann last week. She almost broke that stool in Ireland after potatoes and Guinness.
Right.
Shut down fart.
It seems like Mondays have become very lavatorial again, and we were thought we were evolving beyond this. Nothing's changed. All right,
go through our phases.
Speaking of nothing changes, I'm thrilled to have Liza the Lesbian back. We haven't spoken to her in ages. And Liza used to be the host of That's So Gay on cliffcentral.com, also a regular co-host on Sex Talk. The poor woman, she's still reeling from the shock of being on Sex Talk for a number of episodes with Jonty. Hello, Liza the Lesbian. How are you? We can't hear you. I think your mic is muted. Just unmute yourself there.
I'm so sorry. Typical.
There we
Hey. Morning,
How are you?
everyone.
Nice
Good
to
to
see you.
Yes, good to see you. I'm not sure how I'm going to top the diarrhea and farting story
Oh.
this morning, but we're going to definitely try.
Right. Just by not doing either of those things, you'll do very well. Thank you.
Don't touch it with a
Yeah.
10-foot pole.
Yeah.
I know.
So,
What an
so how,
intro.
first of all, how are you? I mean, it's been a very long time. You were long before cliffcentral.com, actually. It's worth saying you were the host of your own show on Cliff Central. But before that, you were already famous when we had our show on regular radio, because you were a regular contributor there, and you kind of, we made you the boss of all lesbians. I mean, whether the other lesbians liked it or not, we made you the Lord Chief High Lesbian, and
Queen
yeah,
of builders.
you were even asked to like officially release statements on behalf of the lesbian community. You were made very important at a very young age.
In the day when it wasn't that widely accepted, by the way.
Yeah.
I know. I was chief lesbian, and then I got married, and then I lost my status. Now I'm just a married lesbian, I'm telling you.
Those LGBTQIA plus people are just very fickle. They hit one day, away the other.
Listen, I'm part of that community, and I don't understand what's going on. Like, seriously, from day to day, there's letters being added, there's pluses being added.
Yeah.
It's become quite complicated, and as chief lesbian, it falls upon me to explain these things to many people. And I
To all
very
the
often don't know
stakeholders.
what to say.
So, Liza, first of all, how's marriage? How's the wife? How's life? What have you been up to?
When people ask me, I normally say marriage is like a walk in the park. If the park is covered in fawns and barking dogs and bushes and people running at you with guns and knives, and then there are parts that are very smooth and beautiful with beautiful trees and sceneries, and then you get a massive fucking fawn bush again. But for the most part, it's great. It's really been the wife is doing great. I think that people will ask. We got married in Vegas, which is something I've always wanted to do.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Kaz didn't have much say in how things went down there. The only say she actually had is that we did not get married by a midget Elvis, because that was my ultimate. You had the choice of a real Elvis or a midget Elvis, and Kaz was like, Liza, this is where I draw the line. So it was quite fun.
How long have you two been together now?
We've been together now for 11 years. There was a very short pause in the middle during sex talk, because all that talk of sex confused a lot of things, as it does.
Right. It can sometimes make things better. It can sometimes make things worse.
Yeah, I think it, it was quite an awakening to be on sex talk. There's a lot of things that you don't know, and you start asking these questions and wondering, and it awoke quite a few things in me. But yeah, it was quite fun. I actually missed the gang, I must be honest. It feels like home. The only person we're missing here today is Mabali from the old team, and the grumpy old Jewish man.
Yeah, Auntie Searle, that's him. So listen.
No, I mean Damon from your team.
Damon
Kalvari, of course. Shame.
Yes.
Very grumpy. More grumpy. If you've seen him on social media, you'll know what I mean. Like constantly.
Oh no,
grumpy.
I have. I follow him, and he complains a lot. It's quite fun following him. Leigh-Ann, I'm a little bit disappointed that you're sitting so close to the camera. I can't see the girls today.
Yeah.
When I heard you're on today, I was very excited that I was going to get to see the girls again. It's been a while.
There we go.
And I'm wearing black, so you can't really see.
That's very disappointing. Very disappointing.
Isn't it horrible how Leigh-Ann has become so Amish?
I know, right? She used to wear these these nice short V-necks, Gareth, when I first came to your studio, when you were still at your previous radio station, 5FM. Leigh-Ann wore this like low-cut V-neck.
One of the things that always drew us together, Eliza, was our love for similar things. You know, that was always something. I always felt I was always a supporter of the lesbian community, but you and I in particular, we liked kind of the same things.
Yes, exactly. Big boobs and beautiful women.
So, Lisa, I mean, October is Pride Month in South Africa.
Yes.
So, what does that mean to you? And what is Pride Month actually these days? Because I think what's happened is like gay, lesbian, bi, whatever it is, these things have become like so normal and ordinary, in fact, that I don't even know if we still need a Pride Month, because I don't know, you still hear about occasional like moments where people are, you know, homophobic and like, and I don't mean homophobic as in they say something that might be misconstrued. I mean like genuine nasty homophobia. You don't hear a lot of that very much anymore. I think mostly people have come to the conclusion that it is just not a cool thing to be like that in society. So what does Pride Month actually mean anymore?
You know, Gareth, I mean, you know, we have Women's Month, right? And people are like, why do women need a full month? And, you know, I think the thing with Pride Month is not just about saying, listen, gay people are out there. We are, you know, we need to be respected. We need equal rights. It's not just about that, but it's also kind of to bring awareness to, you know, the LGBTQIAS plus community as well. There is still, like you say, very honestly, there's still a lot of intolerance in our country. I think America has it worse at the moment. It's just exploded in America. But
what are they doing over there? It's insane, right?
It is. They're going backwards.
They are going backwards. Kaz and I were seriously contemplating going to America at some point. I even think at some point we spoke about us going to America. But it's just not on the cards. It's not an option, because it's
especially not Florida.
It's just really become very unsafe, I think, you know. And people think, you're gay, it's not a big deal, but it has become unsafe in America.
What, for lesbians, or do you think it's just become unsafe generally?
I think generally, but also for the gay community. You know, there's a lot of intolerance and hate and anger, and it doesn't matter which spectrum on the community, whether you're transgender or bisexual or, you know, whatever. I just feel like it's become a lot intolerant, and people taking their anger out on, like, I mean, we see gay clubs being shot up, you know, and there's been a few. There's been more than one mass shooting.
But let's also be fair, Lisa. I mean, even the most horrible, like neo-Nazi, you have to think very carefully about taking on a lesbian. I mean, some of these, you know.
Some lesbians I would not take on. I'm going to tell you. No, absolutely. So the lesbians so far are quite safe. I haven't seen some anger towards the lesbians as well as yet. You know, our butch community is really out there fighting for us, doing the front line. You know, I think if you want to win some of these wars going on, just put a bunch of lesbians in there, man. You don't even need to give them guns. The enemies will go running when they see us coming.
Oh my gosh.
But, yeah, I think Gareth, the real thing about
No, go on. The real thing.
So I think the real big thing about Pride Month in October is really just that awareness. And it's also about the community coming together and celebrating, you know, celebrating what we have achieved, celebrating our rights. You know, I am very lucky that I have never actually been discriminated against. I've never had issues. I mean, I walk into a company, I'm loud and proud, and everybody knows I'm the lesbian of the company. No one has issues. You know, I joined the guys in the talk.
Have you ever had another lesbian like threaten you for your position in the company as the company lesbian?
No, the gay boys do though. You know, the gay boys come at you with their nails painted and their hair all flipped back, and they're like, "I am the key lesbian," or "I'm the key gay here." No. But not the lesbian
gay in the village.
No, you're not. So, Lisa, is it true? Is it true that when you are an out lesbian, a proud lesbian like you are, that you immediately get like VIP treatment at Builder's Warehouse, or is that nonsense?
You get that special checkout aisle.
Yeah, you know they have Employee of the Month photos on the walls, right? So at the
Yes.
Builders and Leroy Merlin's where I go, there's a photo of me and Kaz when we walk in that says VIP lesbians, you know. We're there so often. Like we walk in, they give us like the golden trolleys.
The gold
We have
tools.
a personal shopper. No, we really do. Like we do, especially with the electronic equipment, you know, those big drills and
Power drills.
God, we just got the new one right in. Did you want to test it out?
I see Carl is asking if I cut the ribbon at Builders Warehouse in Edenvale. Yes, that was me with my big scissors. I had big scissors there. With
They scissor. They scissor.
Yeah, baby. Love it.
Yeah, baby.
You know, whenever there's scissors involved, I get called immediately. Lisa, we need your assistance to work these scissors.
I miss the days, because what we're doing right now is having fun, and you know, like I have actually been a big supporter of lesbians over the years,
Absolutely.
and we make lots of fun, but I feel like a lot of this stuff has become so serious that you can't make these jokes with some people. I mean, like I've got gay and lesbian friends, and it seems to me that, look, while they're obviously my friends, so they have a sense of humor, otherwise I wouldn't want to be friends with them like you. But there's so many people who take everything so super seriously now that, you know, if you make a joke about trans people, oh, well, that must mean you hate. And I don't know that that's been taken to a ridiculous level now, because making jokes is a very important way for human beings to be able to get along. And I know we're busy like deconstructing this instead of just having the fun that we were having 5 seconds ago. But I know you've got a really good sense of humor about this. So how do you put people at ease to make them think, okay, well, this is not one of those like angry lesbians who's going to be upset and offended by everything I say. And you've always been very good at kind of disarming people, making people feel comfortable around you. First of all, that makes you feel better, right, Lisa? You don't,
you know, I'm sure the lesbians are going to come for me after the show, you know. But Gareth, I just think people in general have become very sensitive. I don't even think it's just the gay community or just the men or just, it really is just like, I mean, I read comments that you post sometimes or pictures, and then I see people coming for you. And it's quite funny though, because I think that people have lost their sense of humor. I think that people have lost their sense of, you know, just being relaxed and being who you are. You know, when I introduce myself to people, I don't go, hello, I'm Liza the Lesbian, you know, unless I'm at a Cliff Central event, because then that's important, lesbian and all. But you don't. People kind of, you know, I find that people are just accepting of me and Kaz, no matter where we go. You know, we were at a wedding this weekend with people we've never met. Like, I mean, some of your top advocates and attorneys in this country, prosecutors, and our family introduced us as Cassandra and her wife, Lisa. And there wasn't one person that was like, I don't get that a lot anymore. But I think people are dealing with their own insecurities. People are dealing with their own demons. And when they see something that might trigger them, they come for you. And it's not necessarily because you're doing something wrong or saying something wrong. It's their own demons that they're fighting. But I can guarantee you, if you find that person in the street and you say something, that they would not be coming for you, because it's easy to do it online. It's easy to come for you online and make these comments and attack you. But when you're actually face to face, people won't actually go for it, because it's just easy. Type quickly on your keyboard and, oh, Gareth, blah, 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 blah. No. But
it's similar to being in a car with road rage. It's really easy to roll down your window and scream, hey, drive properly, you fat bitch, to somebody out the window. But would you say that to someone you were in a lift with? No.
No, you wouldn't. You absolutely wouldn't. It's just being online has just made people a lot more intolerant. You know, so funny thing, since last I've seen you guys, I'm busy studying psychology. I got accepted into my honors now. So I'm doing my honors in psychology next year. And very honestly, I think it's just kind of opened my mind to people and understanding people and the things they do and why they do things. And the funny thing, people always say the way people react says more about them than it does about you. And it's the truth. Like, I mean, I watched a comedy show, I think it was Kevin Hart's show the other day, and he was making some comments about the gay community. And I bawled laughing. I thought it was hilarious. And after his show, the gay community came for him. And I mean, he had to go online and apologize and everything else. But the thing is, that's what comedies build on. Comedians are there, and comedians do, like Gareth, when you were roasted, people were pulling you apart about all the mistakes you've made, right? And that's what comedy is you look at things that are really shitty, like diarrhea on a plane, and you use it to make people laugh. You create humor around it, you know?
Well, also there's this idea that you need to be, I don't know where this comes from, it's like a collectivism. And Bakh'abantu, you've often spoken about this too, like you have to give the approved Black community answer to something. Otherwise you're not in the community. So if Liza says, for example, as a lesbian, if she goes, well, I don't agree with X, Y, and Z, but the rest of the community, whoever these people are who've decided this, they decide, no, that's not the right opinion. Then they'll actually say to Liza, she's no longer a member of the community, which is bizarre because she never opted in or signed a form or like got her membership card anyway. And like, what is this community, right?
You know, the word community, Gareth, and that's the funny thing. The word community actually means togetherness. And togetherness doesn't mean you always need to agree on everything, right?
Yes,
like, I mean, you and I, there's some things that you do and say that I disagree with, and I'm like, oh, Gareth is being such an arsehole again today, right? But I still love you. I still respect you. And you and I can still have a conversation about the fact that we disagree. And it's the same with Kaz. You know, we disagree with things fundamentally sometimes, like politics. We disagree on many political things as well, you know, or life and work in general. But it's those disagreements and conversations that we learn from. You can't take someone's community card because they have a different opinion than you. You know, and I mean,
also, how do you decide that you're like, this is a community, but it isn't really, because and I've said this before, you can now be the one who finally evaluates. You're the chief lesbian, so you get whatever you decide here is the law, okay?
Okay,
so,
I'm ready. Shoot.
So the L's, that's you and Cass and, you know, a number of other people I know. The L's don't really have a lot in common with the G's, let's be fair.
Not true. Yeah, that's true.
It's not really a community. I don't know a lot of gay guys who get along with lesbians. I don't know a lot of lesbians who get along with gay guys. They kind of get together because of the gay thing, but they don't really hang out together. Like, I don't know that many lesbian couples who are like, oh, we got to see the gays this weekend, you know? So that's true. That's more or less true. It's not always true. There are obviously going to be exceptions. The L's and G's don't have a lot to do with each other. The L's and the G's both don't really believe in B's. They believe bisexual people are just people who are either in the closet or waiting to be turned.
That's me. I believe all B's are L's secretly, like Leigh-Ann. I've been working on Leigh for a while, and I'm telling you, Gareth, one day, Leigh-Ann, once you go to Builders and you use those scissors, darling, you're never going to go back.
All right, so let's carry on the thought here. So the L's and the G's don't really believe in the B's, so they don't really respect the B's. They think the B's are putting up a show. So far, L, G, and B, not a lot in common, okay? Now we got the T's. T's, there's not even this much overlap between the T's and the L's and the G's and the B's, because the T's aren't about sexuality at all. They aren't about, you know, falling in love with someone of the same sex, someone of the different sex.
They're not about the banging.
No, but they're not even about sex. They're about the gender that they clearly are not biologically involved in. They have a different gender. It's a totally different world to the L's, the G's, and the B's. So probably not a lot in common there either. I mean, do you have a lot of trans friends who you see every weekend?
You know, Gareth, I don't. Majority of my friends, funny enough, are straight. But I also think it depends on the crowd that you hang out with. You know, when I was at Cliff Central, when we were doing a show, I had a lot of gay friends. I had a lot of transgender friends. I mean, we had Anastasia on the show, who was just absolutely lovely. You know, so I think it kind of depends on the crowd you hang in. And I mean, I work in a very, very corporate environment. And it's not a label people necessarily carry around with them. But to come back to you, what we do and do not have in common, right? I don't think it's so much about the things we do and don't have in common. I think it's about the struggle that people have in common. It's that yes, I might not be able to connect with a gay guy as much, although I do know some wonderful gay men that I absolutely love. I know some trans people that I absolutely love, but I just like people for who they are. I really.
Okay. So it's more like when Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma were up against each other at the Polokwane ANC conference, and the SACP, COSATU, and the Youth League, who don't have anything in common with each other, they all decided to vote with Zuma instead of Thabo Mbeki. That's what it is. It's like a coalition. It's a coalition. It's not a community.
Yes. It's finding something you have in common. And I think perhaps for our very lengthy alphabet, the thing we all have in common is that at some point or the other, we either had a struggle or there is a struggle for right, you know. And I mean, if people didn't fight for our rights, I wouldn't be able to be legally married to Kaz. I wouldn't.
Liza,
And not only...
and that's a big deal. But let's be fair, the A's and the I's, really? I mean, like the intersex people, these are people who are like, they're born with both sets of genitals. You don't have anything to do with them. How many of them do you even know? I don't know one.
I don't know, Gareth. How many organs do you have down there that I'm not aware of?
You just checked. You had to check. You had to check.
I have a family member. I have a distant cousin who was born both sexes. And I remember being told as a little girl that this had happened. And it was like a huge, massive, like, sit down and talk. And, you know, it's so embarrassing and shame for them. And that's happened to their only child. It's just not like that anymore. Not in South Africa. Certainly.
Are they them? Is he, she, is that
are
person?
They?
Are they on Instagram?
How long did that take to come out?
Well, I mean, people want to know. That's a very rare condition. It doesn't happen often. What about the A's? These are people who decide they're not into sex at all. So they don't have any, they're asexual. Those people have nothing in common with your community or the straight community, because like we're going to define ourselves by that.
Crazy about sex. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Look, I know a girl who's asexual. She's just like any other girl I know. Like, you know, it's not something that when you meet her again, it's not something that she advertises. Oh, by the way, listen, just to let you know up front, I'm asexual, just in case maybe you want to try something yet. Not at all. I just, you know, I also think it's
she's not like cold, and she's not like cold and icy. And the minute anyone talks about like, wow, let's say you, for example, you go like, wow, she's kind of hot, and this woman goes, I can't believe you even said that.
Or she keeps quiet and her ears start bleeding.
How does it work?
No, not really. Hey, I think it's like I just view people differently. You know, I don't look at whatever part of whatever alphabet they are. Gareth, let me put something out there for you, right? So I often say this, and then people kind of look at me skew and like, I think that I love a person for a person. And I, honest to God, if something ever happens to Kaz, touch wood, I cannot confidently say that I would never end up with a man. I can't. There was a comment in the group here asking, would I ever date someone trans? And my answer is neither yes or no, because I've never met a trans person that I might have been attracted to. Right. It's neither here nor there. It's just, and I don't believe that everybody thinks that way. And I don't believe that everybody maybe has that approach to sexuality or relationships or anything. But I mean, since I was a very, very little girl, I was gay. And I know it. I mean, I used to run around chasing girls on the playground when I was 4 or 5 years old, telling them I was a boy so that I could kiss them. So it's something that has always innate been with me. But I can confidently say that if something ever had to happen to my wife, if I met the right guy, I mean, I can't say that I wouldn't date him, you know? Yeah. So maybe some legends are going to take my card away now. But for me, it has always really just been about connecting to a person, finding common ground, finding common interest, you know, and that's really what relationships are to me. It's about that, you know.
Slippery Pickle says, I know someone who's bisexual. He's so desperate, he's up for whatever.
Talking about yourself there, Slippery Pickle.
I also think I also think we've got to a stage where it's an important part of people's identity, you know, where you sit on that scale and what exactly you are into. It's become like a
It's important for people who don't know where they are on that scale, or who don't realize there's a scale. Because, you know, we were talking about...
trying to have sex with you. Or for people who are trying to have sex with you. The only people
we were talking about,
who really care about this are you and the people who are trying to have sex with you.
Yeah, true. Listen, I've dated a lot of straight women. And they might have been straight outside, but in the bedroom, there was nothing straight about them. I'm just putting it out there. So, you know, I think sexuality really is a little bit more fluid than what people say. I know a lot of straight men who might not admit it out in public, but a lot of straight men have absolutely told me that they can't confidently say they would never have sex with a man. Very, very muscular, typical straight man walking around with a hammer. They would say something like that. So,
the hammer?
The hammer. The hammer. Wait. We don't all go.
Men walking around with hammers. Maybe I'm hanging out at Builders too much.
It's way too much. We don't all go to Leroy Menlin. We're not all there.
All right, listen, it's fantastic to catch up with you. And as Congo Chris says here, you're very honest, Liza. Don't ever change. It's one of the reasons I love you. So keep doing your good work.
I love you too, Gareth. I love you, Lee. Nice meeting you guys again. It was so fun catching
to see you.
All right, we love you. Thank you, Liza.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
And love to Cass, by the way. We love her too.
Absolutely. I'll definitely tell her. Hey, cheers.
There we go. You know what's nice is that we have been friends with Liza for such a long time, and she absolutely has stayed consistent throughout. She's never had to like reform because she had the wrong take on this, or because times changed, or because she isn't like this political dispensation or this persuasion or anything else. I think that's amazing. That's really truly a big plus mark on her copy sheet. I love talking to her. She's good fun.
Absolutely agree.
Again, doesn't take herself too super seriously either, right? So that's one of the good reasons to chat to someone like that. It also reminds the rest of us to stop taking ourselves so fucking seriously. Apparently, is this a true story? Zizi Kodwa apologized to Black Coffee for not being able to attend his Madison Square Garden show.
So the biggest thing that's happening in South African arts and culture, or agriculture, as Leigh-Ann said, is that Black Coffee is performing at Madison Square Garden. This is international level. That's the SA flag flying high. And Zizi Kodwa just tweeted to him, "I'm sorry, I can't come."
But like, did he tweet it? Was it a DM or did he?
No, it's an actual tweet.
Public?
Because he's trying to. It's attention grabbing. He's attention grabbing. It was like, dude, these people. Remember my hit list, Gareth? Zizi Kodwa was on there.
But careful when you talk about a hit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my figurative hit list.
Unless it's like the top 40 hit list.
On Heat magazine.
Yeah.
Sorry, lost you for a second.
Gareth disappeared.
What do you mean by hit list?
No. These people that like have too much money. Zizi Kodwa has too much money to spend. Right. yeah. When you remember, like he just does whatever he wants. He's changing names of towns. He's doing he's having a job.
What a strange thing to tweet or to share on social media. It's almost like you're asking for an invitation.
Yeah. It's attention grabbing.
Or you're trying to kind of invite yourself to a conversation that you weren't in, that people didn't even think about you in. Now you're feeling so left out that you need to be a part of it.
Who was missing Zizi Kodwa at Black Coffee's Madison Square Garden concert?
No
like, you know who we need? Zizi Kodwa.
Unreal, right?
And he has to like make an official apology. Like, I'm so sorry.
How stupid. What an attention-seeking, pathetic thing to do, really. And you went to see, speaking of culture and agriculture, you went to see a play. You've been talking about this for ages.
Yes.
I think we might be interviewing. So the play is a John Carney play, right?
Yeah. Nothing But the Truth. John Carney.
Exactly. And it features one of our best actors, Selo Makikangube, who we've spoken to. I've interviewed him before. He's terrific too. Apparently, I'm going to be talking to both of them, but tell us, because I know you can't wait to tell us how educated and cultural and fantastic you are. So On with it. Let's go. Bakh'abantu's moment to shine, everybody.
So I went to this play.
6
I've
a.m.
read the book.
He's had to sit through conversations about lesbians and Israel and
And shit.
Yeah.
And shit on planes. But like, yeah, this is cultural session with Bakh'abantu. So I went to this play. Super awesome. I read the book by John Carney. Cello was doing like it says backed by popular demand. So Cello is reprising the role. And it was just great. But at the end of it, what had me was that the sentiment that was shared, this is like roundabout, it's set in 2000. And the guy is talking about forgiveness and how the country needs to move forward. And we're still in that same place of anger. That caught me. That caught me in my feels. I was like, nothing has changed. The same promises that were made are still the same promises that were never kept.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it was, but it was such a great play. I met Mr. Carney himself, shook the man's hand. Yeah, had an entire speech ready. I was like, from Sarafina, sir, up until Black Panther, I have followed your work, Mkhlegazi. And then he's like, oh, you're closer. I'm like, then we did the closer thing.
Okay. Well, I'm proud of you.
See? Thank you.
It's allowed one hero worship moment every now and then. You know?
Yes. Like I didn't do that to you, Gareth. I was just like, Gareth. But Mr. Carney.
But you didn't embarrass yourself by saying, oh, I work for Gareth or anything, because I don't want you dragging me into this.
No. Like people were actually impressed. They're like, oh, who's this Bakh'abantu chap? We've never heard this name. I'm like, yeah, no, don't worry. You'll hear the name soon. You'll hear the name soon.
Well, very good. By the way, Sanela says Zizi's surname Kodwa means but.
Kodwa.
Kodwa, yeah.
But
it is.
If we add an extra T to that, it's probably more appropriate, right?
Yep, pretty much. Pretty much.
Well, I mean, listen, dude, I often give people shit for going to plays and musicals because I hate them. But it's a good sign that a civilization is together, relevant, making a positive and meaningful impact on society. You can judge a culture by its output, right? And if we have great playwrights, great actors, great painters, great sculptors, musicians, you mentioned Black Coffee earlier. These are people who are making us proud. If South Africa is going to be talked about, let it rather be for things like this that we can be proud, genuinely proud of.
For our rugby players,
these are things that we're contributing to the world. It's not like the bad stories you read in the news every day about our politicians, that this is something to be genuinely pleased with. And we can consider ourselves to be major contributors in the world in this respect, as opposed to all the other stuff where we are lagging behind in education and, so many other sectors and spheres. And John Carney is a world famous name in this field, and I think that that's terrific, and we've got to own it. We've got to take that to wherever we can, make sure that it becomes something we're well known for.
100%.
All right, well, we end on a very positive note. There's still a lot to talk about that we didn't get to this morning, and we will. Leigh-Ann Mole, thank you very much for your time this morning. You got a hideous pair of shoes that you wanted to show us. I'm just going to put this up here quickly before we go.
Just pop them up. It's not a big story. It's just I think humanity, we've reached the top of ugly shoes. It's now done. These are the Balmain shoes that have just come out there.
That's the price tag.
30,000 rand. Yeah.
What?
They're
no way.
That's how much they are. They come in men's and women's, and
watch producer Ryan rock up with these next week.
No, I'm telling you, the ones. That's why I screenshot the ones on the right. I reckon the ones with the flame effect. Ryan's gonna love those.
Producer Ryan on board. Sign him up.
This is so bad. Listen, it's always easy.
It can't get worse.
You can always get people to part with their money by making something really disgusting. Someone's going to love it. And these will sell. They'll sell like hotcakes, just like so many other things that sell that I don't understand. But you won't catch me wearing any of those. So Let's see what happens. Good luck to Balmain for coming up with these. Revolting. All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. Have an awesome